Hello, my name is James Westrick, and I am doing this presentation for my capstone project in order to complete my Bachelor of Science in Legal Studies degree from Herzing University. For my capstone project, I decided to do a legal career field study to kind of accomplish a couple of things. Um, the reason I decided to do this primarily was for my own benefit. It lets me know uh, kind of what jobs are out there and available for someone that gets a degree in my field. Obviously, I think that'd be helpful for others that are going for a legal studies career uh, or plan to go into the legal field at some point. The other part of this is educational because the different careers that I've researched, I also kind of go over what they are, what role they play in the legal field, as well as some of the job aspects like what experience you need and like what the median income is and job growth and everything like that. What kind of spurred this study on was the fact that I kept hearing from different people that it's not a good time to go into the legal career field because it's shrinking as different forms of automation and self-help tools and software come out for filling out legal documents and things of that nature. So I just kind of wanted to go and take a look for myself and provide that information for other people. Um, the first career that I looked at was arbitrators and mediators. They're fairly similar in a lot of different aspects. Um, for both of them, they have a median pay around $60,000 on the low end. I saw like $40,000 salaries. On the high end, I saw over $100,000. A lot of it's going to depend on what type of cases you're arbitrating or mediating. Ones for corporations tend to be higher. The more experience you have, the salary is higher. Um, the job outlook for these two were really, really good, as a lot of people are looking to stay out of the court systems, which is one of the primary purposes of these two roles. Essentially, they're similar to a judge. They sit down and they listen to court cases, not court cases, but people's complaints and the defense from both sides. And mediators essentially work to come to a common goal that both sides have to agree upon in mediation. And then once there's agreed upon goal, they both sign a contract stating that they're going to follow the terms of that of the mediator. The arbitrator is different. Essentially, before going into talks, both sides agree to follow the arbitrator's guidance. So whatever the arbitrator comes to in the end for the ruling, they both have to stick with that decision. And that's kind of the difference there. As far as job experience, most places are looking for you to have at least a bachelor's degree in legal studies, and a lot of them want 5 years experience either in an arbitration or mediation role. So it's kind of a catch-22 there, where you got to get experience before you can do it. But obviously they want something that's going to be close to arbitration or mediation. But most of them are willing to accept experience from similar roles, or like courthouse experience, as like a court clerk or something of that manner. The next one that I looked at, next career, was Bar Association Administrator. Now, administrators for the legal field, they're kind of all over the place. You can obviously, for the Bar Association, there's a couple other different legal associations. A lot of legal offices have office administrators, and they'll all kind of fall underneath this purview. But for the specific one that I looked at the Bar Association office administration job that I was able to find online. The median pay for this was $45,000 a year. Didn't really see much more than like $55,000 at the cap. There are roles above this that kind of like supervise different association administrators and stuff like that you would look to step up into if you're looking to increase that pay. And again, this is kind of one of those jobs where you can get where you start here and kind of move up in the field. Um, the job outlook for this was average growth. It was I think 7% job growth. Um, the the required what they're looking for this job was at minimum an associate's degree. Most of them said they would like the bar association specifically said they would like experience, but they're willing to hire people as long as they have at least an associate's degree. Um, the role of the association administrator, budget oversight, management of different functions of the bar association, and then of course they just provide overall support for the entire administration. So another one that I looked at that's actually a really good good option is the certified financial planner. Here we have a really good median pay. Median pay is around $90,000 a year. The job outlook is really good. They're growing, I think it's at like 24% per year. There's actually no required experience for this role. Um, so it's pretty easy to get into. There is extra certification that needs to be done for the role, but I mean, for anyone that's got a associate's degree or a bachelor's degree in legal study, that certification course looks pretty straightforward and easy to accomplish. It doesn't take terribly long either. It looks like it was just a couple of months. And to get a job starting at $90,000 a year, that's a really sound investment of your time. The primary function of this role is to give advice on investments, help with like people planning to buy houses, so getting mortgages, planning for college, different types of savings plans. So that could be retirement plans and stuff like that. They help people prepare for taxes. So this could be big businesses, small businesses, a bunch of different stuff like that. Another one that a lot of people use them for is for estate planning, coming up with how they're going to pay their estate taxes and distributing the wealth of their estate to different places, whether that be relatives or nonprofits, etc. So this one was a really good one that might not be bad for different people to look into. Kind of down that same similar vein, it's kind of out of the box for someone in the legal career field, but it's a commercial real estate agent. Their average income's around $50,000 a year. Job growth, again, I think this one was at 6%, so it's right in that average category. No experience required. There's a certification course, again, a couple of months. It's not bad to come out making $50,000 a year on average, and I mean that can always go up or down. It's kind of dependent on the housing market with this particular job role. And most people are aware of like real estate agents' jobs. They help buy, sell, and rent different properties. Some might help manage them, like if it's on the market for long and like the person's not living there and is still trying to sell it, they might have you go through and help with like maintaining the place, or have you hire someone else to maintenance it. Generally, those types of sales are gonna be a little bit more expensive, put a little bit more in your pocket, and kind of help you raise that average salary. Pardon me. So the next job I looked at was a corporate trainer. This is a pretty interesting job. Says a really high median pay. The average pay is $105,000 a year. Super big growth. This one I think was at 17% growth rate. It does require a bachelor's degree, and they would like 5 years experience doing some sort of like corporate training or education. So whether this is like working in like human resources positions or other like corporate like training, like more entry level corporate training positions that you're not going to train on this level. But essentially, this particular corporate trainer like oversees like all the staffs, and they plan and direct different events and education programs in order to help build the skills and knowledge of employees. The reason this might be something that someone in a legal study field might be interested in is there's obviously different legal offices that will utilize a corporate trainer. Um, corporations that are big enough to have their own legal department would use corporate trainers that are specified for the legal career field. And one of the reasons why the salary is so high is because it can require a lot of traveling. Um, you might be going to give talks about like sexual harassment. That's a really big thing that's been on a lot of people's minds lately, as current events about different like high profile figures come out and stuff like that. And like, so you could travel all over the country giving talks about the legal repercussions of those types of actions and stuff like that. But definitely not a bad pay for what they're asking for a bachelor's degree and a couple years of experience. Another one that I looked into was a deposition videographer. This is more of it kind of incorporates the role of capturing, video as a videographer, but it's specific to depositions, which are when someone goes to give a accounting of like what happened to be used in court. Median pay for this type of position was $59,000 a year. There was really good job growth in this market. I want to say it was like 12%. It's not as high as some of the others. It's just right over average, but that's still better than average. All they require is generally a bachelor's degree, and you're essentially going to film and edit people's deposition videos. You might also take in, weigh in on, kind of like what they're gonna, how they're gonna phrase things in their deposition, help set up the video experience, and different stuff like that. So it's definitely an interesting kind of hybrid position to look into if you're interested in videography and in the legal field. Another position, is kind of off the beaten path as well, is that of an investment banker. The median pay is $67,000 a year. Job outlook was I think it was like 6.5%, so it's right in that average category. All it requires is a bachelor degree. Doesn't necessarily have to be in like personal like finance or business or anything like that. So you can do it with a legal studies degree. Actually, it might not be a bad idea to have a legal studies degree because you're gonna generally have a really good grasp on current financial law and stuff like that, which can really help protect yourself and your clients' investments when it comes to like protecting them from a legal aspect in the financial realm. But essentially, the primary role is buying and selling securities, stocks, bonds, stuff like that for individuals, or advising companies on like investments and stuff like that. It's a pretty interesting job. It's pretty high paying for the median. And it's definitely something to look into if you like working with numbers. So another job that I actually looked at here was that of a journalist. It was something I didn't really personally think of. It's not super high paying. The job outlook isn't super good. The actual number of jobs went down. That has a lot to do with print sources kind of being phased out as more and more people do online articles and stuff like that. And we can just do more online with less people. But I just thought it was an interesting choice because there's all sorts of publications that are online as well as those still in print, and a lot of them have like a section that covers like recent legal cases or the implementation of new laws and stuff like that, and that might be something that someone that likes doing journalistic writing and has a legal background might be interested. Um, Obviously, the primary role there is to like inform the public about current events, news, what's happening nationally, locally, um, which again, a lot of stuff's going on right now. Um, like the president's proposed tax plan would probably be something that a lot of journalists that are looking to write columns about like upcoming laws and stuff would be something that they would probably be following. Um, the next position that I took a look at was that of a jury consultant. This is something where if you kind of like that courtroom experience, you might be interested in looking at this one. Median pay is about $45,000 a year. Uh, Job growth is average. It was 7% as well. Um, all you need is a bachelor's degree in legal study, and essentially you're just helping an attorney uh, choose like jury members and as part of the jury selection process. You'll probably be putting together profiles for the jurors, doing background checks on them, and stuff like that in order to kind of help the attorney come up with the best jury for their outcome that they're hoping to have. So it's definitely an interesting position. Not making a bad amount of money for just having a bachelor's degree. Um, so one role that I did include in here that I thought was one that I personally like was that of a law librarian. Um, I knew this one was one that I wanted to cover because I have two legal libraries that are pretty close to me, and I've worked with both of the law librarians that manage them, and they're phenomenal people, just well springs of knowledge, and they get to spend all day in a library. So it's for me personally, this is a really cool job. Um, their median pays around 60,000 a year. Um, their job outlook is average. I think it's a little under 6%. Um, it does require a law degree or a master's degree, um, which you can make more with one of those degrees, but you're going to have a lot higher demand job. Most law librarians, um, they're all the library hours, so it's a nice steady 9 to 5 job most of the time. Pardon me, I'm just fighting a bit of a cold here. Um, but yeah, so you're basically helping people find information, conduct research, um, pointing them in the direction of like legal forms they may have to fill out, um, things of that nature. I know like for a lot of my legal classes, the law librarians have been immensely helpful in finding resource material for me to utilize um, for my different papers and stuff like that uh, over the last couple of years. So that's a really cool one. Um, the next job that I found was that of a law professor. Um, Pretty straightforward. Um, the median pay is around $135,000. That's really good. The outlook was pretty good. I think it's about 8% job growth. So that's a bit on the higher end of the average spectrum. Um, you do need to have a Juris Doctorate for most of these. So after you get your bachelor's degree, you're talking about another 4 years of college. You also need state licensing for working in the education field. Um, so there's a little more work you need to do there as well. But if you're interested in teaching people, this is definitely a path to look at on the higher earning end for the education spectrum. There's some other teaching positions, like a lot of the professors that I've worked with over my course. Um, they're obviously teaching in the legal field. And I know like two or three of them had doctorates, but not all of them did. So there's a lot to be said about the great work they've done in educating me. And um, yeah, you can really impact people's lives as a professor. And so a law professor, if you want to work in the legal field, would be a really great role. Um, a lot of, obviously, on top of educating students, a lot of places require that you do like academic research and stuff like that. So a lot of law professors have like published books and done legal research studies and stuff like that. And that's, just a little extra something that you generally do as part of staying educated in your field as well. So really cool position there. Um, Another position is that of a legislative analyst. Median pay is around $50,000 a year. This is one that didn't have great job growth. The growth was like 1.3%. So it's not that it's not growing, it's just super, super small. Um, wouldn't be super surprised if it did reverse in coming years. The biggest reason why is in the past they've essentially done research on like new legislation. So a lot of times you'll find them working for uh, senators, congressmen, stuff like that. Maybe for companies if a company is lobbying for or against a new law, and essentially they go through, break down the law and figure out kind of how it impacts different demographics, or if you're working for a company, how it impacts that company. Um, I think the biggest reason we're kind of seeing a reduction in this is because, again, more and more intuitive software is coming out. And there's a big focus in the last couple of years on making legislation simpler for people to understand. Um, Again, that was one of President Trump's big things, like with the tax code that's coming out, simplifying that. And so there's just less of a need for physical people to do that job as we get smarter and smarter technology. But it's still a role that exists, making a reasonable amount of money. It's not a bad place to maybe start and kind of look at moving somewhere else in the field as you get legal experience working in the position. Um, Speaking about software, another position that's available that's in the legal field. It's kind of, again, it's kind of a hybrid position because it's in the legal field and in the technology sector. Is a legal software developer. Um, their median pay is about $102,000 a year. Um, like they had 26% growth in the field. That's huge. That's the biggest I think of any position that I saw. Um, Next to that other position that had 24% growth. Um, and one of the great things is that all it requires is a bachelor's degree. Because there's a bunch of different parts that come into software development. And so one of the big roles that you can play with a legal studies degree in software development is um, essentially your technical writing skills come into play. Um, so you could be essentially like translating what they want their program to do and stuff into like legalese and or drafting like stock forms for their software to use, um, helping come up with and generate like filing systems, scheduling systems, stuff like that that the developers will integrate into their software. Um, but like legal software is a huge industry right now. Obviously, like you've got like research software, and that's like your Westlaw Next and your LexisNexis, and then there's truckloads of software that comes around like case management from a bunch of different companies. A lot of companies are working on cloud-based software for that now, or um, looking at like integrated enterprise systems to put that software together. But it's definitely a big growing field with a great starting salary. So if you're like me and you have a background in technology and you have a legal studies degree, this would be a great position to look at going for, because like you should be able to find a position, and as long as you got a strong background in both fields, it's I think it'd be a slam dunk landing a job in in a role like this. Um, so the next position I looked at is that of a legal consultant. Um, the median salary for this is $115,000 a year. Uh, One of the big benefits is you're kind of your own boss. Job growth is average. I think it was like 7.8%. You do need a lot of experience. Most places, if they're going to hire you on as a legal consultant, they want you to have a Juris Doctorate and a couple of years of experience. A lot of them also want you to be certified by the state bar, just because you're going to be a lot of times providing legal advice on multiple levels, federal and state, for different companies. And so you really need to be like top of your game on the current law. And again, like legal consultants can get pulled in on tax law. They can get pulled in for business and contract law, just a wide number of things in different sectors. And as any consultant does, you're essentially going to be providing guidance to individual clients or businesses that are kind of seeking out your advice, or like help in like drafting legal documents. Maybe you're helping a new business incorporate, or maybe you're working to help a medical company become up to date with new HIPAA laws, or something like that. But obviously, like really great starting median salary. You do need a definitely a couple years in school and a couple years experience before you can really start making a lot of money with this. But once you get there, like the sky's kind of the limit, and you kind of get to write your own hours. So it's definitely a good thing to look into once you actually have a Juris Doctor under your belt, along with some experience. Another position I kind of looked at that I thought was cool was that of a lobbyist. Doesn't sound really amazing right off the bat. The average pay is about $50,000 a year. Job growth is steady, is at like 6.7%. Most companies, if you're going to lobby on their behalf, they want you to have like a bachelor's degree, and essentially like you're just taking in getting behind a company's agenda, and supporting them and pushing that. So like if like I work for, say, like I work for Best Buy. If I was working in the legal department, like right now I might be lobbying against like the changes they're trying to make in net neutrality and things of that nature, because of how they're going to impact the tech business. Like if for some reason the Best Buy objected to Trump's new tax plan that him and the Republican Party are proposing, like we'd come up with a plan to try to lobby against that, and kind of just affect policy. So if you really like politics, this is one really good position to get into. Another role that a lot of people in the legal field look at going to is actually that of a politician. There's not a ton of money to be made, depending on what level you get in at. The medium The median income's only about 45,000 a year. But that again, that's going to depend on the role that you're playing in the government as a politician. Like if you're a politician for like a local government or even a state government, um, your salary is not going to be super high. But uh, like at the federal level, a lot of the senators are making good amounts of money. Congressmen as well. Um, like there's a bunch of different positions as administrative heads and things of that nature all over the board. So while the median income is low, that's just because there's a bunch of what I guess you could consider entry level politician jobs that are going to be at that lower income, and it gets balanced out against the smaller number of high income political positions. Um, job outlook on this growth was poor. The honestly, I think like it was at like 1 point something percent. It was like 1.4, 1.5. I was surprised there was any growth at all, to be completely honest, because I mean, how often do you really add like a new congressman or a new senator to the roster? Um, this probably taking the growth is probably taking into account new positions that get created over time in administrations, or in local governments as they add a new a new position to cover some new aspect that they're trying out or something like that. Um, One of the cool things about being a politician, though, obviously you get to meet a lot of interesting people, other politicians. Um, you get to work with different laws a lot, so that's good from a legal study standpoint. Um, there's no real formal degree or experience required. Most of them just require that you run in a local election. There's a lot of positions that are appointed as well, um, that you might look into as you kind of if you gain more renown in your local community, or um, at the federal level, or even in a particular industry. Like if you're a banking magnate, you might get tapped to work at the Federal Reserve or something like that, and go from the corporate sector over to the political sector, kind of like what we saw with a lot of like Trump's cabinet appointments. Um, and your primary role is going to be to like create laws and regulations, at all different types of levels within the local, state, and federal government. Um, Obviously, they do a lot of campaigning, working with constituents, philanthropic events, and stuff like that. But it's an interesting position. There's a lot of people with illegal background that become politicians. Like Hillary Clinton's a big one. She was she has a law degree, and I believe she worked as an attorney for a few years before getting more into politics. Um, so the next role that I looked at, again, it's kind of in that real estate vein, is that of a title examiner. You have a median pay of about 50,000 a year. Job growth was at 7%. Um, you do need a bachelor degree, and they require you to get certification again. And that generally it's a real estate certification similar to the one that you get as a real estate agent. A lot of places want you to have like 1 year experience. So again, this could be in a real estate agent position or other position in the real estate sector. Um, but essentially, the role of the title examiner is to go through different documentations and maps and records, and essentially just look and see if there's anything like liens or easements on properties and stuff like that may prevent the sale of a house, or like you might need to inform a buyer or a seller about during the property purchase and sales experience. Um, the next position I looked at was a trust officer, also known as an estate administrator. We have a median pay of $57,000 a year. The job outlook is a little bit higher than average. I think it was right around 16%. It only requires a high school diploma, and then 5 years experience in a related field. A lot of times, if you have experience working with trust or estates in any capacity, or you've gone and like a lot, they'll often take. It looks, from what I can kind of gather, they'll take experience that you get from going to school. So, while it, like, if you have a bachelor's degree in legal studies, it might be easier to get into this job without and only have like a year in estate administration, because you have that legal background where you've done you've done research on estate laws and stuff like that. But essentially, you're going to be looking at maintaining estate property and kind of preserve its resale value, or protect the valuables of the estate when the estate holder passes, and then gets distributed to their relatives, or gets satiated into the government, or something like that. The next role that I have is that of a judge. You have a median pay of $110,000 a year. Job outlook is average. It was like 5.5%. They do require that you have a Juris Doctorate and 5 years of experience, and a lot of states do require that you pass the state bar exam in order to hold a role as a judge. Judges, they apply laws, oversee legal proceedings. They a lot of them do like law reviews and stuff like that. So this is probably one of the more obviously common seen positions in the legal field. There's a lot of judge positions, but they're pretty difficult to get into. A lot of them are done by appointment, so you kind of have to get to know the people in the area, work with like a governor or a mayor in order to take and get appointed to one of those positions. The next position, that's again another common one, is law enforcement. A lot of people look at criminal justice degrees when they're going down this path, but you can do it with a legal studies degree. It's probably got more of a physical aspect than a lot of the other positions that we've looked at here. One of the big things is law enforcement's a very overarching title, because you have like your average like police officer or sheriff, and then you have like agencies for law enforcement, that's being the FBI, NSA, CIA, things like that technically fall underneath that law enforcement branch, or clandestine services branch. A lot of them were, entry level stuff requires a high school diploma all the way up to a bachelor's degree. Some positions like those, like the CIA or the NSA, a lot of them are a lot more selective and might not look to recruit you unless you have like a master's degree or a doctorate. And essentially, they have a lot of different aspects when it comes to what you're going to be doing. Obviously, police officers, they protect and serve. And that could be protecting people's valuables, responding to like different threats, or just like domestic disturbances and stuff like that. and keeping the peace. Other positions, like when we're, like say we're talking about the FBI, that could be different. You could be investigating insurance fraud, mail fraud. Um, you could be investigating um, gang-related activities that cross state borders, a lot of different stuff. And so, like law enforcement, you can really go a lot of different places and do a lot of different things in a lot of different fields. So it's very versatile, and all around they generally have a good pay. So it's definitely something that I've looked into. Um, the final position that I took a look at is that of a court clerk. Their median pay is about $61,000 a year. Again, they have low job growth. I think it's like 2.3%. But not a ton of education required. This was, again, anywhere between a high school diploma to a bachelor's degree, depending on what level of court clerk you were, because there are entry-level positions that make somewhere between $18 to $20 a year. And then, like, I found some that had, like, salaried positions that were making anywhere between the $60,000 a year mentioned all the way up to $80,000 a year for, like, a head court clerk, where you're kind of, like, managing the other clerks in the courthouse. And essentially, you're going to perform routine clerical duties like maintaining records, collecting people's information, processing documents, and things of that nature, just maintaining a courthouse. In conclusion, there are a ton of jobs available. I went over just a few of them here, and while if you do have poor job growth, most of them are growing at an average rate to a really, really high rate, which is phenomenal. And I'm really looking forward to graduating. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you have a nice day. If you have any questions, please comment below.